We're going to continue with our fractions, and the last couple of lessons we've been looking at comparing fractions, having a look at which ones are bigger, and looking at the difference between fractions by using our equivalents. Today I want to bring in decimals into those comparisons, but before we do that, I want you just to quickly go back to term 1 in year 7. We're just going to do a quick recap just to make sure you remember that relationship between certain fractions and decimals. So what we're looking at is, if you remember, with our place value, we have ones, and then we have our decimal point. Then after that, we have our tenths column and then our hundredths column. You can see above I've written, so the tenths column is 1 over 10 and the hundredth is 1 over 100. So hopefully you remember this and it's ringing some sort of bells in your head as it's all coming back. So I'm just going to give you an example of each way just to make sure we do remember it, and then we'll move on. So if I was to say to you, let's start by saying, okay, so I'm going to put 0.3 here. So that would be the same, it's in the tenths column, we'll see, that would be the same as writing 3 over 10. Now you could also say, we could put a placeholder in there, then that would be the same as writing, well, it's 30, 30, it's in the hundredths column, so it would be 30 over 100. So we can see there that 0.3 is the same as writing 3 over 10, and that's also equivalent to writing 30 over 100. So what about if we had it the other way? So what about if you said to me, well, I have 70 over 100. So I could say, well, okay, so 70 over 100, so that's my hundredths column. So I'm going to write 70, and then I will put my placeholder in there. So then I know that 70 over 100 is equivalent to writing, well, the 7 is in the tenths column, so we could just write 7 over 10. That's also equivalent to writing 0.7. Okay, we're now going to move forward and we're just going to have a look at the fractions and decimals. So here we're going, we're looking at that denominator of a fraction. So we can only do this if it's the denominator is a power of 10. So if it's over 10, 100, 1000, and so on. Okay, so how could we write this? So this is 100 square, and I can see that I've got 70. So each one of these is 10. So I know that each one of those is 10. Ooh, wonky line. So I've got 70. So that's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 out of 100. Now, as you can see, if we could say that that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here out of 10, or as we saw on the previous slide with the place value, we could write that as 0.7. So let's have a look at these. What do I notice about this? So the first one, I know that this is 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10, 20, 30. So I could write that and say, okay, so that's 30 over 100. Now we also know that we can write that in a simpler form, because I could say, well, let's just have a look at these. So I've got, that's one column there. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 columns, and how many of them were in pink? 1, 2, 3. So I can write that as 3 tenths. And then using our place value, I know that the tenths comes after the decimal point, so that would be 0.3. Now looking at this one, let's see how many are highlighted. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 out of the 100. Now I can't easily put that over 10 because it's not nice and neat like these in the columns. But I do know that I can write that using my place value because it's in the hundredths column. So it's going to be 0.25. So sometimes we might be given fractions or decimals and asked to compare them. But we now know that we can convert them to make sure they're in the same form so that we can easily compare them.